Tropical Vibes 105.5.
The views and opinions expressed in this special program are not the views or opinions of Tropical Vibes 105.5 FM.
We are a chosen generation. All for to show His excellence. All I require for life, God has given me, and I know who I am. We are a chosen generation. We are a chosen generation. All for to show His excellence. All I require for life, God has given me. I know who I am. I know who God says I am. What He says I am. The way He says I am. I know who I am.
Good afternoon, Turks and Caicos. Welcome to another episode of the Patriot Hour. I'm your host, Jamal Robinson, and I have a very special guest in studio today, Dr. Bernard Young, the host of Leadership Empowerment.
Thank you for being here, sir. I appreciate your invitation, and I look forward to an hour-filled pack of, nuggets.
Yeah,
Things
man,
we could
nuggets.
drink deep from.
Not chicken nuggets.
Not chicken nuggets.
Golden nuggets.
Yes,
Oh yeah.
sir, yes.
Before we dive right in, I'd just like to wish my wife a happy 10th anniversary. We're celebrating today. Actually, we're celebrating
Congratulations,
today
sir.
into the weekend. Nice
Congratulations.
things flying
Number 10.
up. Number 10, yeah, man. 10,
decade.
10 and counting, yeah, man.
All right.
So, yeah, I just like to say that publicly. I said it already, clearly, but publicly since I'm on air. So, today we're going to be discussing none other than leadership,
Yes.
because it's very timely and important. So, to get some initial context on my guest, so first question I want to ask him, what would you describe your leadership style as? That way persons will understand where you're coming from when you say what you say in the questions coming up.
Okay. Thank you, Jamal. Once again, for those of you out there that are listening, it's a privilege to be on this show. I thank you for the opportunity and the invitation, and I encourage you to continue to press forward with what you're doing to, flesh out and be true to the driving force and motivation behind you, because ultimately that is what will break and crack any barriers in your way. Leadership for me is about liberation. You can't talk about leadership if you're not a liberator. I didn't say incarceration. I didn't say tangling and tying people down and limiting people. It's about lifting the lid. It's about empowering people to maximize the effectiveness of every purpose, every identity, everything in them that have given them the permission by God to be on the planet. Everyone was placed here and was filled with some abilities and talents and skill sets in their generation that mankind needs. And leadership for me is releasing that whoever and wherever I come into contact with people. That's essentially what it's about. It's about liberation.
All right, liberation. So, a nation rises and falls based on their leadership.
Yes, sir.
What are your thoughts about that statement?
Well, it's simply
And put it in the Turks and Caicos context.
in the Turks and Caicos context,
Well.
which is the context of our region, which is the context of the Bahamas, which is the context of Jamaica and the other places in the region, because we're all coming out of a experience of colonialism, slavery, and a programming into our consciousness that still is living today and is still playing out. So when you say a nation, first of all, a nation is multi-ethnic people of different origins coming together to create a critical mass to move that area or that country or that region forward in a programmed and planned way. I want you to understand this. So you're talking about planning, you're talking about programming. So a nation rises or falls based on the ability and capacity of those who sit in positions of power and influence to understand in totality what the call of the moment is. In Turks and Caicos, in everywhere you go, it's the same challenge. So in the Turks and Caicos context, if you're asking me that in this moment of time, leadership is not about the next election. Because, you know, we're all focused now. Coming to Turks and Caicos now. We're all about focus about the colors, yellow or green or blue. It's not about the next election. It's about the next generation. That's something entirely different. That's a different mental concept, it's different thinking, and different planning, different preparation, different exposure, different skill sets. It's about empowerment. So we rise or fall, it's true, based on the awareness, the capacity, the ability of those who put themselves out as leaders.
So how do we transition from next election type mentality to a next generation type mentality?
That is a long and hard and bloody process because it leaves a lot of dead bodies, literally, on the ground because people have vested interests in things continuing along a certain path. And that is the biggest struggle of liberating leadership, is the pre-existing understanding of leadership and people who have backed that and are vested in that and the interest that they have in that, that gets in the way. Even though they may see the need for it, they will fight it resistantly because they can't see immediately what's in it for them. When you shift an environment and you shift the people thinking and you shift all of that, it leaves a lot of people without anything to hold on to. You know, I have this now under this present government or this under that present government, and you're suggesting something that's going to leave me neither here or neither there. And that's the biggest struggle. And to shift that mentality is very bloody. People are going to come out and you start talk like that, you find your blood on the carpet and your sacrificial lamb on the cross.
What you're describing to me, right, is, I guess, the difference between scarcity mentality, which says, okay, well, I got this in my hand with this crew. Let me leave the status quo alone.
Yes.
Versus an abundance mentality of a liberator who would say, all right, well, hey, this is what we all could do.
Yes.
Others just don't trust that we all could do this because I got with my bud in the hand.
Right.
When you can have 50 actually in the bush if you open things up.
Right. You want me to comment further?
You come in further.
Our endemic challenge is this. We come out of a colonial past, a past of slavery. We've learned leadership. The leadership model we duplicate and replicate and mimic, we've learned from our former captors. We saw how they led. We saw what they did. We saw how they meted out favors, how they did things. It was all on a structured platform aimed at keeping people literally incarcerated. And I would suggest this, I would strictly suggest this, to begin to dismantle the present mental construct thinking of everyone. It's going to be such a massive job, but it calls for champions among us. It calls for a different set of people, a different mindset. It calls for people who are willing. Listen, let me put it to you this way. What this moment is calling for is this. Are you able to plant fruit trees and shade trees in the present that you will not eat the fruit therefrom or bask under the shade thereof, but you see a need and you're willing to do that now to ensure that the future is secure? That's the moment we're in. And the leaders we have today ain't about that.
So nobody wants.
It's about now. It's about no sacrifice, my friend. You talking about future generation? You better give me my things now. What? You drop that. Leave that alone. I want my things and I want it now. It's my time. I mean, in the Bahamas with the recent general election a couple of years ago, it's the people time. But we're finding out it can't be the people time simply because we're still imposing a self-structured system of thinking that ain't for the people.
Like us, they never say which people or what kind of change. So we didn't get the details. But anyway, what is one of the what is one behavior, one of the behaviors, you could do several, or traits that you have seen derail many leaders' careers?
Some of the traits is, first of all, we tend to be territorial. We like to come. Okay, let me put it to you this way. If we've learned leadership off the model of our past captors, the British, and I say it respectfully, they first of all colonized the territory, right? You occupy the territory, and think about us now. Then you command the legal, the economic, the governmental systems, the media. You use religion, however you had to ensure that you had total control. Then you control the people. You control the resources. You control the wealth. And those that come up against you, you punish. It was very punitive. Think about it. Think about how we act and behave towards each other. Either PDM or PNP or what was the PDA. These battle lines are drawn in people's mind. We don't have a clue of community and being together and what it is, have an identity. So what are we seeing today? It's the same old command, control, punish, right? And one of the biggest challenges today among Caribbean leaders, our leaders included, is this whole thing of extracting wealth and amassing wealth for yourself, your children, your friends, your cronies, your buddies, your pals. Everybody in the clique benefits from the wealth amassing. And when we look at our past history, that's what the British did.
Yeah, well, that's the whole point.
I mean, that's the whole thing. Yeah. So it's not about liberation. It's really about incarceration and keeping things a certain way. So our leaders today are no more, for the most part, than surrogates of a past that we continue to perpetuate in the present. And the present world we live in is saying, me don't want that. There's got to be something more. If it's that, kill me now. Let me die now. If that's all I have to look forward to for the future for me and my children, kill me now.
All right, so let me ask you this. In
Yes,
leadership,
yes, sir.
does title matter?
No. Results matter. We are more... Why are you messing with me?
Say that
man?
again. What matters? What?
Results.
Results, okay. What that,
Results. Effectiveness.
what that look like?
What it should be. I mean, what is on the table at the moment? Okay. Our Turks and Caicos challenge is this. The country is moving away from the people. What do I mean? Anyone can come in here and amass wealth except the local people. We are not engendered towards financial empowerment. We are not engendered towards ownership, not a job. Oh, it hurts my heart when I hear politicians and others talk. Look at the amount of jobs we've created. Now, wait with that. How many people have we added to be liberated, to be able to have ownership? Wealth creation through ownership. How many inward investors have come in here and we have a public and private participation where the public owns 10, 15, 20% of that investment. We sit at the board table. We have a determination in growing with the country. We're not seeing none of that. That's a whole different way of thinking. So this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. It's radically different. And it's really liberating by giving people a sense of understanding who and what they are, their whole purpose as people begin to alter. Because when I now see that I'm sitting at the board table at Beaches, and the people of the Turks and Caicos own 20% stake in Beaches' success, my mentality as an employee of Beaches suddenly begins to alter, because there's a dividend check going to the government of this country, to help defray costs of various areas of government expenditure, to help for education and infrastructural development. That's where the wealth growth and wealth creation cannot just be for the benefit of the investor. What about us? That's leadership. You're affecting the future generation of Turks and Caicos Islanders in the present sense. That's what I'm talking about, Jamal.
So, how can a leader encourage creative thinking within an organization? Let's call this organization.
Okay. A
Turks
country,
and
a
Caicos
church.
Incorporated.
Country, a church, a family.
Right. And is that something you believe leaders in the TCI actually want, creative thinking?
No, they don't want it. They don't want it simply because to expound it and to perpetrate it will mean that they have to go on the sacrificial cross.
Explain.
Well, explain, okay. If I need to shift the train on a track heading at breakneck speed, I first have to slow it down, which creates friction, heat, conflict, because I really want to jump track onto a different path, right?
Correct.
So if I want to shift the mentality, if I want to shift what people will have or not have, I have to come up against the structures in society that presently have things vested a certain way. That's going to mean my blood on the carpet. There's no one willing to sacrifice for that kind of change, because there's nothing personal in it for me that I'm going to get in my pocket. My children is going to be secure. My blood could be on the carpet. For what? No one's willing to do that. And meaningful change can only happen when we reach that mental reality that it comes with a price.
No one to date.
We're not willing to do that. So looking across the landscape generally, we're just perpetrating and perpetuating a system of being elected, get in there, do what we do. We drive the car, we make the trips, we go through all the process of what we think is important. But the generation of the future is still on the same train.
So how would you encourage creative thinking? Even though it might not be wanted,
Listen,
how should it
first
be?
of all, whoever's out there, if you aspire to be a leader, or those that are leaders, if you're going to change your generation through creativity, through a different kind of mindset, it's going to cost you something. It's going to cost you contracts. It's going to cost you opportunity. It's going to cost people cussing you. It's going to cost you not having as much assets or money or opportunities as your former predecessors had. It's going to cost you something. For instance, let's use Mr. Jaggs McCartney, the late Mr. Jaggs. It cost him something. It cost him his life. But that's a different story. No one talks about it. No one exposes it. No one ever, we hear stories, we talk in circles, but another thing you have to confront. No one's willing to confront. Unrighteousness and darkness prevail when righteous men and women keep their mouths shut and fail to confront it. So darkness continues in its march against righteousness and that which is good. And the structures we now have out there that's still in control, still got us in its grip, is only because some of us refuse to speak.
But even looking at the era in which the late Honorable McCartney would have passed, what would have happened to him wasn't far-fetched given the era of regime change, or
Of course.
that's what. And we looking back 38 years,
He was a leader.
right? Leader. If you wasn't going with the
The
capital
tide.
industrial
Exactly.
complex in England and America and non-communist type vibe, they just, and it wasn't been just him. So you got Patrice Lumumba, all these other persons, they just moved,
They wipe you out.
wipe you out without,
It's as simple as that.
was in the way of the agenda.
Exactly.
And Turks and Caicos is a strategic location. You can't have anybody. Just think about how long the Cubans and the Cuban Missile Crisis and the embargo up till Obama basically eased it back a couple of years back. So that ain't far-fetched.
Essentially, our people are afraid, intimidated, scared. Our leaders are scared. They refuse to really deal with hard issues. We talk around issues. We don't deal with them. We don't critically analyze and make critical assessments of situations. There isn't sufficient historical information on our table and in our plate and in our understanding to be able to make evaluations from that make sense. We run and hide, and we've taught our people get our virus. The leaders are scared, the people are scared. We assassinate each other. We don't understand the strength of community. We don't understand identity, why we have to have an identity, and anyone coming in, we don't adopt their identity. We have an inbred identity, and that identity is progressive. It's not creating small pockets of people who are not going nowhere, but people who are empowered and growing and liberated in their approach and what they touch. We don't need wealth per se, we need inclusion and all of us under one common identity. And I'm not talking about a political identity. I'm talking about an identity as a people.
So, in your opinion,
Yes, sir.
which is most important to leadership? Mission, core values, or vision?
There can be no leadership without vision. Visions come from God. Vision always speaks to a futuristic, ideal state that God gives and births in the present womb of a leader. You see something that's not yet. But when you look around you, the circumstances around you are diametrically opposed and contradictory to what you see. Understand what I'm saying? So vision is the catalyst. It's the fire. It's the spark. It's the DNA of leadership. You got to have vision. And like I said when I started, it's a vision, right, that is not about the next election in the political context. It's about the next generation. That's the vision. What do we see the Turks and Caicos as 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now? We create in the present what the future outcomes would be, because the present tense is no more than past decisions that have borne fruit.
So we need to do some present decisions to bear fruit in the future.
Exactly.
With that.
Exactly.
How can a leader gain commitment from their team?
First of all, everyone around you have to see that you mean what you say, and you say what you mean, and you live it out. That every breath, every fiber of you exudes in truth what you represent and what you say. Because people don't have that kind of model around them. They see people generally flip-flopping. They say one thing, they do something contradictory. They make a covenant here, they break it there. So a leader, the first thing you need is consistency. Consistency in you, consistency in your makeup, consistency in truthfulness and honesty and integrity in everything you do, say, and touch. And when you make representation on behalf of people, you love them and you want to serve them because you're serving what they can't even see. Sometimes you find that the people you have to serve are the very ones fighting you because they don't see what you see, because it's never been given to them to see. It's been given to you. Do you have the strength and stamina to see that vision through? So vision is critical.
I had that discussion with my wife this morning, actually. But anyway, all right. So, are you, not you particularly, but the proverbial you, are you truly a leader if you are not preparing those that will follow you, meaning preparing them for leadership?
Listen, leadership is about lifting the lid. It's about preparation. It's about empowering. It's about getting people to think, behave, respond differently. And to do that, you got to be the first model they see, because they don't see it nowhere around them. What we're talking about now, you're not going to see when you look at most people around us, either in the home, either in the church, either in the community, either politically, either in business. You're not going to see people who are prepared, come what may, ramrod straight into the cannon's mouth, to be true to what they really believe. We find people flip-flopping for the most part. Fence-sitters. They say and speak when it's convenient. But one thing we're good at, one thing we're very proficient at, Jamal, we know how to kill, maim, and assassinate each other. We have a doctorate in that. We do that well.
There are plenty of doctors out there now.
Yes, indeed, in assassination.
Is it considered weakness if a leader has to change a decision due to new facts?
Absolutely not. Leaders thrive on right information, correct, credible, factual information. And if you make a decision, decisions are either interim, short-term or long-term. If you, for instance, make a long-term decision, you better gather every piece of evidence and fact, because the decision you make affecting future generations yet unborn. For example, every time we go into the halls of Parliament, the House of Assembly, and we promulgate laws, we must see the future impact of our laws on future generations. You just can't do something because it seemingly seems convenient in the moment. You have that's great forethought. It's not a scant regard thing, a trivial thing. And unfortunately, we see laws that sometimes make no sense in the light of day when you're looking at the future. And they make laws simply because they have no clue of what the future looks like, because they're visionless. How God separates leaders from leaders. There's leaders, then there's leaders. How God separates leaders from leaders is vision. Visions come from God. Visions always speak to the future. It always addresses a condition of a people, placing and advancing them to a better future. And most times the vision requires the carrier who's impregnated with it, who's pregnant with it, to bear it with the morning sickness and everything that cause you to want to puke, and cause you to feel the internal tremors of bad feelings, and you see things happening and you can't change it, but something in you just keep bringing what's in you right on the front burner. You want to forget it. You want to run away from it. You ask sometimes, give this to somebody else. I don't need it. I want to live the rest of my life in peace. But alas, there is no peace, because he chooses you. And when he chooses you, it's you. You can't get away from it. Trust me.
Can't run like Jonah.
You can't run. In fact, you run right into it. You think you're running from it, you're running into it, and further into the belly of the whale. So there can be no leadership without vision, and there can be no vision without leadership. They go hand in hand.
So what is one characteristic that you believe that every leader should possess? Everyone.
Now listen now. I said before there's leaders, then there's leaders.
Right.
Now
So
which one we talking about?
I don't want the leaders.
Okay.
Those ones over there.
Vision,
Right.
self-sacrifice, call. There got to be this element of call on your life. What is call? That, first of all, God is a leader. I want to make that very clear. Almighty God is a leader supreme. The truth of being told, he is the architect of leadership, divine leadership, and throughout the ages of humanity, he has selected men and women that he has called and placed the mantle of leadership upon, because leadership is a spirit. I like to talk about the spirit of leadership. When you have that spirit, when you're possessed by that spirit, and we have to be possessed by something, because spirits do what they do, they possess the host. And to be possessed by the spirit of leadership, you can't run away from it. Let me tell you something. I try to keep my mouth shut, clamp it down. The foolishness you see is almost like a pricking that causes you to have to open your mouth. Because darkness can be confronted unless you what? Speak. So every leader, that's the leader, will speak. The leader will have vision. The leader will have calling. The leader will be willing to have self-sacrifice. You're not going to get anything out of it for you, but you are true to what you see the future should be. And I see a future where Turks and Caicos Islanders should possess and own the land. We shouldn't be just divvying it off and selling it off and just giving it away to inward investors who come in, develop it, make all the money, then bring in their crew that displace us, and you're living in the Q towns. Nothing wrong with living in Q town, but I'm saying you're forced into the Q towns and the Five Keys and the low areas, and they have the best of the land. I don't believe in that. I don't subscribe to that in the least. It is repugnant, it's abhorrent, and it's unacceptable. And for a few of us that put ourselves with that system and benefit, because that kind of system must have surrogates.
Of course.
Surrogates are people that it pulls along and empower and enrich them, much like the slave system did. The fellow that worked in the big house, he had a chip on his shoulder against the fella down in the field. So they create these divides and these divisive features among us to divide us. We still ain't smart enough
allow you to make a
see
little
it.
more than the rest of them.
And
So
what
you got-
leadership does is expose the lie, expose the plot, and embrace and entreat our people to come together. Strength is in togetherness. That's where our strength lies. And our divisiveness is what keeps us separated, and we can't get nothing meaningful off the ground. So leadership first exposes the lie, then invites people to come together as one. Not what you have and I have. No, we are one in the same stake of the future. Because tides turn. You might be rich today, my bro. You might have a couple of million in the bank account. 2 generations later, that could shift. Because God is the architect of shift and changes, and we've spent so much time amassing wealth when we should be liberating people to be higher, to see more, to see farther, to be able to do more, to give an honest day's work, to show up to work on time, to be the first in line when things have to get done, because you have a stake in the land. This is your land. And you have something to say, not someone coming in and telling you how to run it and what to do. What foolishness is that?
Any foolishness. Now to the other type of leader. Is leadership simply one's ability to influence others?
Yes, we influence people towards the light or the darkness. Hitler was a leader.
No doubt.
Yes, he was. He bore influence, he had a vision. The vision was to purge anything that wasn't German. Right? And he was doing it while the world kept silent. For the most part, knew it was wrong, but went along with it. Right? So, definitely, Jamal, leadership either liberate or incarcerate. Leadership either lift the lid or put the lid down and chain it down.
A couple of bricks on top of that.
Leadership either sells hope for a brighter future, or leadership is content with the status quo and goes along with what is. So, leadership, you're right. We rise or we fall based on our leadership.
Now, I believe there's that, particularly in the animal kingdom, God has placed certain animals that model good leadership, or some characteristics. Are there any that
Animals
you
in
think
the animal kingdom?
that stand out?
Yeah.
Good
I like the
qualities of
eagle
leaders?
and the lion.
So what about those two animals?
Well, the lion, we call the king of beasts, is not the largest, the tallest, neither is it the strongest. But the lion got something we call attitude. A lion has the capacity to, when he shows up, he's a game changer. You watch the nature programs. A wolf would kill and be bloodthirsty. A lion would only kill to suffice his hunger. There's a marked difference. That's why, and I allude to scriptures because since most of us tend to be religious, the scriptures talk about when Jacob was old his name was changed to Israel. And he was in Egypt getting ready to die. He called his 12 sons, the 12 patriarchs, and he spoke into their lives what their future would be. And the tribe of Benjamin, he said Benjamin's tribe would be ravine, like a wolf, that is hungry, bloodthirsty, grabbing. In the Bahamas we say grabalicious. All it means is you like to grab, you like to hoard, you're greedy. Saul was from the tribe of Benjamin. And if you follow the spirit that was in Saul, it was the spirit of a wolf, greedy. He was given an instruction to do certain things, and he did opposite. And then when the prophet confronted him, he said, I kept the stuff that I was supposed to destroy because I wanted to sacrifice it to the Lord. And the people, I listened to their voice. He blamed the people for his leadership transgression. But he had a greedy spirit.
Deep.
Yes. The lion is attitude supreme. He roars, speaks, and the rest of the animal kingdom hears and listens. Because that roar means power and authority. The eagle, solitary bird, flies high, alone. Leadership, true leadership, you're going to be a loner. You're not going to find many people you can hang out with because a lot of people are not seeing what you're seeing. A lot of people follow leaders to get what they can get, or thinking that they can ascribe to being, elevated in some way or find favor in some way. But when a leader is a sacrificial leader, you will fly alone many times, be by yourself. Not that you are a loner per se in yourself, but you find the decisions you have to make will isolate you from people because they can't see immediately what's in it for them. So the two animals in the animal kingdom that exemplify to me more of this leadership spirit and attitude is the lion and the eagle.
Back to basics now.
Sure.
What is the difference between a leader and a manager?
Oh, you're getting into the okay. A manager is not a leader, and a leader is not a manager. A manager commands resources and human resources, physical resources, financial resources, wealth resources, whatever, and is trained to put them in a way and combine them in a way and utilize them in a way to turn something called a profit. A leader actually charts what the future will look like. He doesn't get involved necessarily in the nitty-gritty of how it could get done, because you make sure you find the right people with those skill sets to do that. But you are charting the course of an organization. You're charting the course of a family. Okay, you say you were married for 10 years, right? And I know by now, over the 10 years, at the beginning of the year or at some point in the year, you and your wife sit down and chart where you want to be in 3, 5, or short term into the future. And you have, during the year, assessments to see where you're falling, if you're falling short, if you're ahead. You have some benchmarking exercise, whether it's formal or whether it's just a sit-down meal or lay down in bed and a conversation. There is some benchmarking. We do it in organizations. We do it in, it should be a part of our lives. But we find, for the most part, the people on the ground don't have any sense of any kind of organized approach to life. One of the great things we need right now is financial literacy for our people. How to manage money, how to spend money, how not to allow the banks to give you a credit card that you're paying 21 or 23% on, cumulatively. You don't have no savings program. You're on a paycheck to paycheck situation. You're on a consumer writer's binge. What you see you want now. We have to rein in our people and bring them into a consciousness of how to use money. We need a local bank right now. Yeah, you know, Scotia Bank leaving. Where's the leadership in the financial arena to have already,
Bounce back.
understand what I'm saying, my brother? This thing is prolific. Families need leadership. Oh, Lord, do we need leadership in families? The traditional, family as we know it, husband and wife and children, a grouping of people together that moving and ordered in a certain way. We don't see that no more. We've raised up people in our society that's never seen normal. So when you're born into abnormality, the abnormality is your normal.
It's the new normal.
So when we start talking certain things that's normal, there's a disconnect. You can't connect with it. And that's really the challenge right now in the Turks and Caicos. We've grown a generation of people that don't know what the right way is. Their reality is the world they've been born into, which is deviant and contrary to normalcy. So to bring everybody into one common understanding of normal, of what's right, is going to take us a Herculean task, man. And it's bigger than just winning elections. It's bigger than just preaching from the pulpit. It's bigger than just starting a business and getting employees. It has to be a massive regeneration of leadership across the spectrum of every area in Turks and Caicos, bent on making change, radical change, from where we are right now.
How can a leader fail? Give an example of that. A Turks Island example, given our context.
Let me deal with the family.
No problem.
We don't go too far.
Too far.
Because everything begins and ends with the family structure. Look at our family structure for real. And tell me, have we failed or are we moving on the right path? I would suggest to say I would boldly say we have failed. For the most part. Most of our families are dysfunctional. So when we talk about leadership on the family level, and what's in society came out of some family, whether it's functional or dysfunctional. So what's in wider society is no more a reflection of what came out of the family structure. So if we want to know if we're winning or losing or failing or winning or whatever, look at the family. We have to get the families back to basics. So I would say the family.
How would you measure successful leaders?
Well, we say it, and I say it again. Do you have a compelling vision that you're prepared to die for? Compelling vision. Are you lifting the lid on the people around you and liberating them to a higher level of thinking, to a higher level of consciousness? Are you walking the walk and talking the talk? Are you living what you preach? And also, in light of the prevailing forces against you, are you willing to be the sacrificial lamb?
Well, Jesus was perfect. I ain't nobody else perfect.
Well, it's not so much perfect. He died for mission and vision. Purpose was to die for the sins of those who would destroy him. Even the ones who cast to gate him and brought him up on charges as an innocent man and condemned to die as an innocent man because the Roman governor, the judge, was not prepared to go against the cry of those who wanted his blood. He wasn't prepared to lead. He was prepared to do what was convenient. And too many of our leaders fly the flags of convenience, not the flag of truth and justice and what is right and just. Convenience.
What would you say are some of the most difficult decisions a leader has to make in the 21st century in general and in the TCI 2018?
The most difficult decisions leaders in the Turks and Caicos will have to make, which connects with leadership in general, is how do we take our people from being so enmeshed and engrossed with a political agenda of partisan politics to see what's in the best interest of the Turks and Caicos. Forgetting color, party. What is it that we want the Turks and Caicos Islands to look like? Forgetting color. Forgetting whose side you on. That's the most difficult thing for any political leader here to do, or any leader here to do. As a church leader, the very most difficult thing is, how do you connect people to God, not the pastor?
You find out, let me know.
Our job is to connect people to God. He is the one. I back out the way. You need a relationship with him, not me. How do we do that? I want to say something about religion. Something said by Haile Selassie that I found very interesting. I can't. We must stop confusing spirituality with religion. Religion is a set of rules, regulations, and rituals created by humans that were designed and intended to help people grow spiritually. However, due to human imperfection, religion has become corrupt, political, and divisive, and a tool of power struggles. Spirituality is not theology or ideology. Spirituality is simply a way of life that's pure and original as was given by the Creator. Spirituality is a network linking us to God, to the universe, and to each other. So when we look at the fact that we are divisive and anti each other, we know we're not spiritual, but we're religious.
Just church back on Sunday. And Saturday do.
And for the most part, Turks and Caicos is a very religious place.
Yeah.
Not godly now. Religious.
Definitely religious. I think we probably have the most churches per capita in the world.
But not only that, every word out of someone's mouth alludes to God in some way. But you divisive and hateful and warmongering and cutting people down and mean and surly. Come on now, we gotta deal with these issues. We gotta talk about them as leaders.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Is it acceptable in the 21st century in the Turks and Caicos Islands for independence not to be thought of by a leader?
Honestly, when I look at what I see, and I see we continuously perpetuating a model of leadership that's cut off our colonial history, I would wish to see a leadership emerge with a different kind of mindset that would really be talking about independence. Independence from this perspective. First of all, let's galvanize our people together into a common identity. Because right now, we lack commonality. Other than a piece of paper from the registry that says, I was born here, what else connects me and you? It ain't this, our color. It ain't the fact that if you cut me, red blood. My blood could save you, your blood could save me. It ain't that. We lack a common identity, something that's the glue between us. No matter what goes down, what is that thing that holds us together? We lack that. Before we could talk independence, we must rediscover what that is. And get that going and get it fused. Then we are unstoppable. Nothing can stand in our way then.
Given what you described, or what's been described for the last near hour, because we're getting close to the end.
Yes, sir. And now we went by very fast.
It seems like the status quo does not want such a thing to actually happen.
Absolutely not.
It's not in the best interest to become unstoppable of the status quo.
Absolutely not. Some of our own don't want it because they would have some sidebar benefit of the way the thing is structured presently. So the moment is calling for leaders who out there really have that spirit of leadership. And Jamal, is in the most unlikely places sometimes, we look for it based upon who put themselves forward, or sometimes here, you ever heard about the divine right of kings? That is an old English Tudor system where the kingly line was supposed to have come out of the will of God. They call it, we have a divine right to lead. And there is such a thing as a divine right of families in Turks and Caicos.
So they feel
Some
that
families believe that leadership belongs only to them. It's off the old feudal British system of the divine. We're so
So we
indoctrinated.
mimic that.
We feel, yeah.
So we pull
Yeah,
that
but
and say, well, if they
our
got
lack
their own.
of history and our lack of world history and human development creates in us this inbred, killing way of how we do what we do. And we do it in a way that is destructful, and it destroys the whole fabric and essence of our people coming together.
Okay. One more question before I allow you to give your final comments on leadership.
Yes.
What are a few resources you would recommend to someone looking to gain insight into becoming a better leader?
The first resource is the Word of God, the truly revealed Word of God. There is no better insight on leadership. Take the book of Proverbs and read it, eat it, sleep it, love it. It is an insightful book on leadership. And we understand that if you really want to be a leader, you really want to really gain insight, you must ask Almighty God to give you a divine download. And the download, I'm telling you, will contradict and be contrary to and be in conflict with everything you see around you. And if you really, really, really want to lead, we really have to be willing to know it will entail sacrifice, self-sacrifice. And chances are you're going to be the one whose blood is on the carpet for people who don't care, don't have a clue of the mess they're really in. And as ignorance prevails in the wider scope of things, people go along just looking for a job, just looking for the next paycheck, and really ain't checking for the future. So you need to have that resource of God's Spirit in you, giving you that strength. And I mean His Spirit, not other people's spirit, not other people's wishes, not other people's encouragement. You need the encouragement from Him and Him alone to really keep you when others would fail you.
I ain't going to let you end there, even though it would have been a good ending. So give me your final thoughts on leadership.
Final thoughts on leadership. Final thought. Leaders, I would say this. Something Theodore Parker said. Hear me. The moral arc of the universe is long, but it always bends towards justice. Leaders out there, it may appear that what God has given you and what you're seeing and what He's empowered you and imbued you with is not approaching, it's not happening. But let me tell you, you are the voice that makes a difference. Don't think that it will not be heard. Don't think your voice is meaningless. Don't think your voice does not have crescendo or thunder. It does. Because every time you open your mouth against the citadels of darkness, no matter where they may be, you stand as a voice that God can use, even in Turks and Caicos. I love this land. I love this country. I don't like what I see. I wish I could do more to empower our people and liberate our people. But unfortunately, the way the structure is set up, the only way to create massive change and bring about consequential change that we all can get behind is through the political process. It's the quickest, fastest way. Because once you're elected and you're the king of the hill and you sit in that seat, you have the capacity to challenge, not conform. And for the political leaders that are there now, it's time to speak, to liberate your people, to be the voice of one The proverbial crying in the wilderness. Prepare the way, make a straight path. Change things. Be the change agent. You can do it. Even if you don't get elected next time. History shows that you stood for something. And whoever comes after you, if they pick up your mantle, whether it's a leadership mantle of an eagle or a lion, you do the same thing. Speak the truth, be the truth, live for the truth. And eventually, when the moral arc swings at the right time, and only he has control of that time, justice will prevail. And we can be looking at an independent and free Turks and Caicos Islands where the leaders are not corrupt, but the leaders are vested in the best interests of the people. And that's my prayer. And that's my final say.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Young.
Thank
Great
you, sir.
having you. Again, that was another episode of the Patriot Hour with your host, Jamel Robinson and Dr. Bernard Young. And our discussion today was on leadership. I'll see you back next week with some more hot topics.
Amen.
The views and opinions expressed in the preceding program are the show host, their guests, and callers, and not the views or opinions of Tropical Vibes 105.5 FM.
All I require for life.